maybe that is work, but it's all about kind of looking at how we spend our time and making sure it is what we want to be doing. So, hey Fab, welcome to that long intro.
Thank you. That was an excellent intro. Thank you so much for having me. I'm loving all the jobs, by the way. I'm digging a lot of these as well. Actually, can I tell you my most humbling job is going to be a
Yeah,
quick
sure.
because I think that's another good one to think about. It was picking up pairs when I was 2 years. I did it 2 summers to buy first time my camera and then second time my laptop at the time. And it was actually really interesting. I wouldn't say it was the best job ever. Trust me, it's not. But very humbling in the way that it really teaches you, first of all, the power of persistence and also the truth about boredom, which I talk about in the book actually. Because trust me, like you're picking up pairs all day, it doesn't get very creative. But also it teaches you really like how to kind of be comfortable with the discomfort of not being able to distract yourself in any possible way. And also you learn a lot about pairs, which also meant that I didn't eat pears for about like 3 years after that. I was like every single day for like 2 months just looking at pears. So yeah, it was weird job, really random. But I find that these kind of the summer jobs, the random jobs in between that our generations, I think, I'm speaking for some people that I see had, have taught us so much. And it's something that I'm actually quite glad that I experienced. But I'm loving everybody else, obviously, like putting all the little things in there and more serious jobs as well. But that kind of came up for me.
Yeah, brilliant. And we talk about in the club actually quite a lot about what you could, sometimes you can kind of learn what you don't want to do, or like everything takes you somewhere, doesn't it? So even some of the jobs that we don't think were necessarily part of what we're doing now, you would have learned so much there. And like all those jobs, I think in the summer jobs, that's when you learn about like you say, persistence. That's when you learn a bit about self-discipline. That's when you learn about crap managers, maybe, and how you don't want to be a boss one day. And I definitely didn't go to McDonald's for quite a while after I worked in the drive-through.
I love that.
So we are going to be working through your worksheet tonight, and I think you actually have a presentation. But just first of all, let's tell everybody a little bit about you and what brought you to this stage of writing a book about time off and why it's so important.
Again, thank you so much for having me. Lovely to see all your lovely faces. Maria has got it printed. Yes, Maria. I'm going to give us some little claps because I cannot see everybody, but Maria was there with a little printed copy. Oh, yeah. Save the planet. You don't have to print if you don't want to, by the way. But I appreciate, it's whichever way. But it's going to be a good way to get us started with the conversation. So well done. So myself, I am multi-hyphened in the way that I think I really fit within what Reclaim Your Time Off is about, because I love what I do and I've always loved doing what I did, even when I was working at Nando's for the UK people. When I first came to this country, I'm Italian by origin, if you cannot tell. Or even when I was picking up pairs, I was always following my passions. At the time was music journalism. So funnily enough, both Tony and I have a journalism background. So I always was doing different things. I was never doing just one thing. And I think that's really what has been kind of becoming a pattern for me. I always needed to feel busy, to feel that I was productive and to feel that I was doing things. So when I then started my own company, the first one, yes, I realized that I could explore the different passions that I had, and some things stayed passions, but a lot of them I managed to monetize or introduce in my work. So the writing, obviously the teaching, the community building, similarly to Shelf Help, obviously creative impact as that community feeling at events. So I've really been able to bring everything together. And I realized that I was being the best and the worst boss ever to myself, because I was not allowing myself to give that kind of slack that I needed. And at first I thought, you know what, I'm doing my own thing. Therefore, I have to hustle until I can then earn the rest or whatever that was. And then I realized that there's no such thing as your little angel or unicorn that comes and knocks at your door and says, today is the day that you can stop and slow down. You are the one that makes that choice. And I think it's very important to remember that. And that was probably the biggest thing that got me to actually write this book, because I was like, I'm working 60 hours per week because I want to work on my dream. And at some point I need to ask myself, when is the right time to actually reassess that? And so I was helping all of my clients doing exactly the same, manage their time better. And I was like, why am I not doing it for myself? So I took all the things that I would do, all the systems, and I turned them into a streamlined support system almost. The framework is a support system to help you check in with yourself when you feel like you're a bit off balance. And obviously we're going to talk about the big C, and definitely with the coronas, has brought this reality in for other people, not just people like myself who are managing their time all the time, but even for people that have managers, people that have bosses, people that work in other environments. You really found that that balance was a bit off balance. Obviously we talked about that already, but and that's what I wanted to explore with the book. So it takes my lessons and my teachings at the same time, and it's definitely a book that I wrote for myself probably 6 or 7 years ago, when I felt I needed somebody to remind me that it's okay to kind of shape my day and shape my life the way that I wanted it, and not the way that I thought I had to do it. So that's kind of really long introduction.
No, I love it. Like, but it's like taking hold of your own time. So what I wrote down was, you are the unicorn. And like you said, there's no unicorn coming to tell you. It's like, I am the unicorn. I have to tell myself. Like, yeah, like some of us, it's easier to motivate ourselves maybe to work hard, but it's not easy to tell ourselves to calm down, especially when you're working on something for yourself. So yeah, let's just talk about work-life balance quickly. I know we did talk about this on our Instagram interview, but not everyone was on that. Why do you flinch when I say work-life balance, or when anyone says this kind of, you just don't like the term, do you?
It's not even that. Okay, now I'm gonna sound even geekier, and like you're gonna be like, Fab, you're so cool. So my degree was in Russian and English literature, right? So I did a lot of semantics and a lot of didactics, so all the fun things with words. And at some point when I was writing the book and I was thinking, also was talking to some community members from Creative Impact, I realized that everybody was asking me, how can I achieve work-life balance? And then the semantics kicked in, and I thought, but so work is not part of life. So that's why, you have to have the balance between life and work. So in my head, it already means you have to have that 50-50 balance, because that's the way it has to work, right? Because work is not part of life. Life is everything else, and work is the other thing. And I was like, maybe for some people it's not like that. Maybe for some people, life is made of a smaller portion of work because they want to invest more in travel, adventure, their family. So they're actually making the work shape around everything else. So to me, work is a part of life. Therefore, that balance is a bit elusive, because as I said, it already puts into my head that it has to be a 50-50 split. Whereas you need to see about for yourself, what does success, and we'll talk about wins and questions you can ask yourself. What does that mean to you? Because then you can really quantify how that work, maybe harmony. I don't know. I need to think rationally, the semantics of that could work better. But imagine life is a pie. Work is part of that pie. Is not half of it. It's not a separate pie. It's literally part of that, and it can fit in whichever way you want it to fit. And instead of having to think about the way that it should be because of what it should be looking like.
Yeah. And obviously work is a fact of life. We have to work. So I think a lot of us on this call especially are working towards making work something we really love and something we at least enjoy. Whereas I think the work-life balance assumes that you really don't enjoy the work part of your life. So it's like, oh, everything else is good. I can make this great because I have to do the 9 to 5. And that's just changing so much, isn't it? Even for people that work for companies, or even for kind of in the corporate zone, especially now. So we'll come on to let's drop the C-bomb. Let's talk about Corona. Sorry, guys. I know normally it's a Corona-free zone, the self-help, but there are new challenges, aren't there, for people actually switching off, even because we were too connected anyway, probably, when it comes to work and being on our email and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think? Are there new challenges? I think there are, but what are the new challenges that people have now with reclaiming this time off and kind of setting those boundaries?
I think the biggest new challenge has been the fact that the challenge has widened almost. So the questions that we're asking right now are questions that now a lot of people are asking. And before, as I said, it will be a lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of the freelancers that will ask themselves the questions, and they will trying to set boundaries because they work with clients and people that are not always in the office with them because they maybe don't have an office. So just to explain, like the book was at first aimed at people like myself because it was just naturally that way. And then obviously the book right now I made sure that it is relevant for, I would say, everyone. Again, take it with the fact that obviously everyone that is working with other people, everybody that is working, especially in offices, or that is working with a team, but also for themselves, because Corona, sorry, the big C, flipped everything on its head, and it took the most important thing that we had, which was a physical boundary for a lot of us that could help us kind of like break, the work laptop stays where it is, that some of us already have lost a long time ago, but some of us didn't. It took it. And even if it was our, workspace that we go to, that is a cool hip workspace that we work for our clients, it doesn't matter. That was a physical boundary we had. And by the fact that our bedroom is about 100 meters from our Zoom meeting room, has really shaken things off. And then on top of that, something that everybody's experienced. So this is even on a higher level. Before you could communicate by email, and then maybe you would chat. I use Slack already because, again, I've been remote since probably like 6 years. We would meet, but not as much with my team. So we're very highly remote already. So we'll have systems, but a lot of people didn't. And now everything that was a bonus has become the norm. So you have 17 ways to communicate with your team, all of which are highly draining. Like Zoom fatigue is a thing, just to explain. So thank you for being here tonight, by the way. So, it is real. And I think that's really changed the way that we kind of put our energies up and what a normal day of work would feel like. And now it feels like 3 times longer. I don't know if anybody has that, but I'm exhausted. Now I'm launching a book, guys. So obviously it's exhausting for a reason. I'm trying to be on all the time. And I'm realizing how exhausting that can be. So it's really important to have these things in mind because it has changed a lot and it's really shaped a lot, I think, the way that we're going to work in the future too.
Yeah, totally. And I suppose, like you said, the laptop used to stay in one place, but also your team, like you could kind of say goodbye, couldn't you? But now it's like there's no reason to not be available for a Zoom call unless you're on another Zoom call, right? So I know quite a lot of the people I can see on here tonight are kind of definitely Zoom fatigue is a thing. So appreciate that. Right then, so shall we move on to what we're going to do about all this?
Oh, yeah.
Fab's here to fix it. So I kind of I've hinted about this. We're going to talk about your kind of solution to overworking because we're assuming that quite a lot of us are overworking. But it's also we're also going to be looking at kind of how we spend our time, right?
1,000%. That's going to be a big part of it too. Actually, I love what Linda wrote as well. I'm exhausted at the end of the day now. Some days back-to-back Zoom calls. Oh, I hear you so much. And see my face too on the video call. Don't say that, but I appreciate in real life it wouldn't happen because you're not focusing on these things. So Linda, I'm going to bring that up as well as a big thing, especially what you can do. So make sure that I might touch on this side of things. It's a bit newer, but there's small things that we can do on that side, but I'll cover different other acts that you want to do. Now, you are shelf helpers. Most of you are already, as in long time shelf helpers. So you should know that I'm going to give you a lot because I'm a big giver, but try not to get excited and try implement everything. Okay. So think about, I know, because I know.
Ration your excitement, everyone.
And I know Tony as well. So it's really, the reason why I'm saying this is because we might get really excited, but I want to provide you with different things that you might want to look at. Find the one that makes more sense to you that maybe you can implement this week and then work on that first, okay? Because that will really help you actually stagger yourself because I want to see where you're feeling and what is going on with you. So I'm going to share my screen. Is that all right? Without further ado, shall I?
Yeah, sure. I think you've got access. You have the power.
Power.
Yeah, you do.
Has the power. So I'm literally going to follow the worksheet that you guys have that Caroline put again in the chat as well. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to have some questions. If you can answer them in the chat, I'll try to keep an eye out. But again, I'm terrible at multitasking with the chat and I do workshops weekly. So that says a lot, but I'll try to do my best. But we're going to cover some of these points anyway that we made. So the first thing that I talk about in the worksheet and in the book actually is mindsets. And you're like, so you're telling me about the solution for overworking, and then we're going to talk about mindset. Yes, because I can tell you all the practices in the world, all the hacks ever. And then in a week, you just feel you're having a bad day. You're feeling like your boss is being a twit. Somebody's not responding to your emails and you're back to square one. Because the mindset is really what helps you in the days where things are a bit rough. And redefining success as bringing that perspective is going to be key to help us doing that as well. So it's really thinking about these things that can actually help you too. And this is why, obviously, this is a couple of little bits dropping here, but burnout has increased so much in the last year that in 2020, the World Health Organization has recognized it as an occupational phenomenon, which is really interesting. I talk about in the book the whole debate about whether it's real or not. You can call it burnout, you can call it, like roller coaster ride, you can call it whatever you want. Realistically speaking, we do feel exhausted at the end of the day. We don't feel like we're performing at our best. So again, starting with the mindset helps you kind of creating those things that can actually help you too. And I think
Fab, just on burnout, actually, we just did a book on self-care for tough times, and she talked about the difference between stress and burnout. And it's like, and you just said about, you don't feel like you're operating at your best, but you're actually not, are you? If you are at burnout, which is that kind of like when you're psychologically just not in the room and not able to give anymore. So it's definitely worth recognizing that it's a thing.
And also, I love what you mentioned, that I think is a reminder that how do we know what burnout is as well? You know what I mean? It can be different for different people. I'm talking about somebody who is, has got anxiety, had depression, and has burned out more times than she'd like to admit. So I know what it feels for me because I experienced that level, and now I can understand it. And I had to really be kind to myself and teach myself to recognize those signs, like you would do with a lot of, mental health issues as well. So I appreciate what you're saying that, because it's a great reminder of that, and actually the little tools that we can use to help us. And I love what Maria wrote as well. I literally talk about it in the book. Is linked to what we're going to talk about. She said, so many people I know don't book days off. They say, oh, I'm going to book a mental health day or some days. And I think that's really reminding us of, what it actually is. It's not just a day off, it's also a day for ourselves. And the amount of people that felt almost proud, literally, I had a client that was so proud that she hasn't had a day off in like 13 years. And then she said, we had a chat. And then she said, actually, now I'm feeling really ashamed about it. That reframing, realizing, actually, why have I done that? But it's okay, because we're actually learning how to work on that mindset. So this is a simple exercise. Obviously, in the book, I talk more in depth, but celebrating your wins is something that is simple, but we do every single week in the collective with our members. Every week, I encourage people to celebrate their wins. And I would say even every day. But again, right now, I just wanted to just kind of look at, for example, the last 4 weeks. Okay. Think about all the things they've been achieving. How much time do we actually spend thinking about all the things that we've done? Literally had the same conversation with my fiance today. He was like, do you realize all the things that you've done? It's so easy for us to get stuck on the negative. It's also a psychological thing as well. We actually focus more on the negative from an evolutionary perspective. It's also protection, funnily enough, which I appreciate. It means we have to go against that a bit and think about, the big and small wins that we've been celebrating or we haven't been celebrating, and spotlighting them a bit more is a habit that you can build. Just like gratitude is a great habit, and there are questions around that as well that you should integrate. I also think celebrating yourself and the things that happen around you, the more you do it, the more you'll see them. So that's a simple way to start redefining that success for us. And I think it's really powerful.
Linda says she's definitely a take all your annual leave kind of girl.
Yes, go Linda.
Gold star.
Go Linda. Sorry, I get excited. It's the end of the day. Rihanna was on. What can I say? Other question that you can ask yourself related to this as well is, for example, like other things like, what am I grateful for today? Obviously, or even if you want to change it up, think also about people. I like to do that. So questions like, who can I give thanks to? You have this in the worksheet as well, so you can use it every day if you want to. Add them to your own little notepad full of lovely questions. Another thing that I love that I talk about in the book as well is the question of, how did I improve myself, or what have I learned today? I think is an excellent question for reflection, which actually helps us seeing anything that maybe wasn't so good or something that maybe we're not so proud of, and how it's helped us actually change some things as well. Obviously, obviously my fave, which is, what is the one thing I accomplished, or what can I celebrate today as well? I'm going to read a few more questions from the crowd, because I'm loving these as well. So Maria started to do something with her team, and the first thing she asks is, what's good today? Love that. So that's a great thing as well. So that you can use for yourself. And some of these questions you can even use within your team. I love to do this also with our team. Questions like this, especially on a weekly or even like on a monthly basis, just to frame things. Also, Linda says, I used to ask, what are you most proud of this week? Yes, I agree. Linda, you should start that again. I think it's an excellent question as well. So it's literally self-reflecting things to ourselves. And sadly, a lot of our talk that we have is quite negative or a bit judgmental towards ourselves. It's just the way, as I said, that a lot of us are these days. And I think if it means creating an habit out of asking ourselves positive questions, that we should do that a bit more. Because it really can, it's first of all something that sets up your day, and also something that can end your day. Little tip off. Lol, 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 lol. Hayden, the actual presentation is all, sorry, I'm just going to say this, is actually the worksheet. So you can literally use the worksheet as also as a guideline for that. Little tip off, if you want to end your day with some of these questions and prepare for the day ahead, try and do it around 3 or 4 o'clock, not exactly at the end of your day, unless you are, if that's, especially if you're like me. If you're a night owl, you might be lucky, but most people will tend to wind down. Like at the end of the day is the time that you want to be off, and you might rush into some of these exercises. So if you want to have a bit of an end of day check-in, do a couple of hours before you end your day. That will help you actually in the time.
I love that as well, because then you're not thinking it's like homework, like, which is like, I know loads of us do this because we're all like, we know we should do our gratitude, we know we should do our kind of like wins, but it's like by the end of the day, some of us like, it's just shattered, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered, when it shouldn't be that. It should be something like a nice thing, shouldn't it? Like a nice bookend to the day.
Exactly. And as you said, like most of us are shattered. I'm an early bird. I am not useful for toffees when it comes like after 7 o'clock. Today you're getting like a very rare example of me being okay. But you know what I mean? You have to work with your energies. So really remember that. Also, one thing that I would love for you to write down, if you can, in the chat, you've been so active, which I live. Share one win with us. Maybe from yesterday. Let's even go with something quite close as well. Obviously, I love a lot of you writing other things as well, but I would like us all to reflect on one thing that we're really proud of from yesterday. It can be a win. It can be something we achieved. It can be a positive thing we learned. I'm just going to give you like 30 seconds or so maybe to think about something. If you want to share it, that will be even better. I also asked Tony to think about it. Oh, God, you already have it. Damn it.
I've got one, and everyone probably knows what it's about. I taught my puppy to sit. But it's taken a week, but he's done it now. So that is a win, I think. Yes, Mel.
That is a hell of a win.
And I've also taught him to run after things but not bring them back. So it's all right. We're getting there. But Fab, I do love in the previous slide as well, when you said, what have I learned today? Because that is, so sometimes when things go wrong or when things don't go as planned, rather than just be like, oh, what a disaster, or that was a failure or whatever, it's like, yeah, now I've learned not to do it like that. It's so much better for us, isn't it? And that gives us more of a positive, we're going to sleep, we're going to bed, we're going into the next day with more of a positive frame of what happened.
Yeah, again, because as I said before, I love that you reminded us of that again. We tend to reframe things in our head a lot with a critical light. So by forcing ourselves just a touch to kind of go back to it and flip it slightly, as you said, then that could be one of the last things we think about. This can be one of the things we reflect on, and having that positive spin will really help. I've got a couple of really good ones. I'm not going to read them all, guys, but I'm going to read a few. So Linda's visiting home. 3-year-old nephew said the best part of his day was me. Today
that is a win.
Take it as a win. Melanie caught up with housework, organizing life, Marie Kondo style. Yes, Melanie, I love that. Maria completed a 200th ride on the Peloton. Yes, since lockdown. Well done. Oh God, Emma saved her husband. Got stuck in a snow shower after cycling 100 plus miles. Had to wait for Nicole for 2 hours, but just enjoyed the free time. Love it. Got the end of list of the direct debits I wanted to cancel finally. Well done, Hannah.
Hannah, that is such a win. That's a go to the bottom of my to-do list every day, every week. Still there. So that is inspiration.
See, that's a little inspiring nugget that you can take. Hannah said took her mum's, so touche. Love it. And well done, Aidan, as well. Managed anxiety despite having a new flatmate moving in and working all day on bank holiday. Well done, Aidan, as well. So all these little things, you know, when we reframe them, we think about the little things that we achieved and the little things that we actually kind of went through. And it really, really helps kind of like putting these things in perspective. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to read them all, but keep writing them anyway, because I'm going to tell you a little story in the meantime. So if you want to share a bit more than happy for you to. It's going to inspire other people as well. Now, I'm going to just quickly talk about setting priorities, just to give you a bit of story time. Some of you might know the fun story of the little Italian gardener, Pareto, I'm pretty sure. So when it comes to setting priorities, I'm thinking about a really good way for us to actually take this forward is thinking about also not just what to reflect on, but how to set better goals. I don't talk about this in the book, so this is fresh. Something that I discovered with lockdown.
Exclusive.
It's not really, but kind of, because I learned about it obviously within lockdown. So just when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, if you are, I will always think about the best thing that you can do is actually break down your bigger picture. So what I like to think about is finding ways to actually set smaller goals, especially when we're feeling a bit overwhelmed. Because again, going back to actually reclaiming time and creating better habits, a lot of reclaiming time means understanding how to set up systems and simplifying our life, which we'll get to. So one little thing that I want to say is that if you ever feel a bit, this is a bit of a quick tip, if you ever feel a bit overwhelmed, then look at micro goals instead of big goals. So what you can do each week, for example, if you want to try for a month where you feel you're really overwhelmed, there's so much going on. For that month, each week, choose one professional and one personal goal and make sure that every day that week you can accomplish that. So these are the smaller goals. These are the little things that maybe you've been putting off that are part of that bigger picture. If you can stick to the same goal each day for a week, you're creating simplicity. Again, you're going against that overwhelm of trying to do all the things. And then you will find that it's really easy for you to kind of create a practice within that. And obviously you can always reward yourself with a glass of wine, a bath, or a takeout, whatever you want. But it's something that I really found has been really helpful for me because again, I wanted to adapt a bit of how I was doing things for times like, again, in lockdown or book publishing, where things are busy or they just feel like I'm not as much in control. So I realized that a lot of the time, maybe looking at the bigger picture can be really hard. So if you find that could be ever an issue, then I would definitely say kind of looking at smaller goals can really help. That's not the only thing that you can do, but that gives you an idea of when there's kind of like reset buttons that you need to set. In general, though, in times where you are not overwhelmed, when you're not stressed, you want to get the practice of setting better priorities. As I said, Italian gardener at the time. I'll tell you this story. So every year, a gardener noticed the peas growing in his garden patch. And he realized that every year, 20% of his pea pods in the garden produce approximately 80% of the peas. This little guy was an Italian economist, and he was called Wilfredo Pareto. So what he learned is basically only 20% of his happy peas were producing 80% of the results. This is a reminder, obviously this is a principle and is a quite well-known principle, but it's a great reminder that something like this simple can actually be turned into a time management kind of tool that literally consultants worldwide talk about every day. This is known as the 80-20 principle. And what it states is that 80% of the output or results of something will come from 20% of the input or action. What does this mean is that a lot of the things that we do, we have to do, they're good that we do, but they don't get us closer to where we want to get. And it's okay to have that. But what we want to make sure is that we realize what are the most important tasks that will get us closer to our goal, to finishing our projects, so that we can start prioritize them. Because when we look at our lists, let's be honest, our list is just full of things we need to do. Prioritizing can feel a bit overwhelming. So it's just a reminder that actually, if we were to strip it back and we only could do 2 things a day, we will be able to probably realize which ones are the 2 core things that we need to do. So this is my question for you. This is what the exercise that I go back to when it comes to understanding your zone of genius. This is also in the workbook, and this is the big element of the 3-step solution. First, you need to understand what your zone of genius is. First, before you simplify, delegate, and automate, which is the whole process, you need to understand what are the core things that you can do that can actually help you getting closer to your goal, that can be better spending your time on. So the question that I have for you, this is, you can write it down, but is also maybe for yourself in a notepad. What is a task that you spend 20% of the time doing that brings you 80% of the returns? By the way, Andor wrote, I joined the Shelf Help Club. I'm just going to say that. That is really cute. But, you know, think about these things as well, because they really help you bring in that perspective. The reason why I say this is, again, because we're going to go through the process briefly. Obviously, the book talks about the whole thing, but I'm going to give you a bit of an insight so that you can do something today. But if you don't do this first step of realizing your zone of genius, realizing your priorities, the top tasks that you do, the top focuses, then you're still going to feel overwhelmed and you're not going to be able to follow through. And yes, Hannah, is a very tricky question. 100%. And like, I'm not asking you to do it right now, all of it, or to figure it all out. It's a good reflection point. So definitely think about it a bit more, maybe outline some areas of your work, for example, that you know you're really good at. That could also be another way to do it. But you'll find there are some things that are just not naturally within your sphere. For me, it's accountancy. I don't know if anybody knows theirs, but accounting is absolutely terrible for me. The first thing I outsourced 7 years ago. Off we go.
Can I just give a book recommendation talking about the zone of genius?
Yes.
I know you know this book, and probably that's inspired a lot of what you do. The Big Leap
is in their references. Yes.
Ah, yeah, cool. Yeah, so guys, Big Leap, brilliant book, all about recognizing your zone of genius and then kind of stopping self-sabotage so you can get into it and work from it and create from it. I love it.
Yeah, so that's definitely kind of where you can combine those things. And there's a lot of reference in the leap, actually, because when you think about the big leap, a lot of the book is also about obviously having that courage and knowing that sometimes you will have to do something without really knowing how it's going to pan out. Obviously, that's also in the name of the book. And I think there's a big element of when you are following a method like this as well, when you're starting to clean up and maybe prioritize and let go of some stuff, you will have some resistance, or it will be a bit hard because there's some uncertainty. I'll tell you exactly the 3 steps, and each step has got their own little sabotages and obstacles, which I talk about in the book as well. So it's really important for us to understand first and foremost what a zone of genius is, so that we can actually work on it better. As I said, it's 3 steps, which you also have in the workbook. First of all, and this you don't have to do it right now, so don't have like wide eyes like, there's a lot. It took me about 4 hours with the team, so bear with. It was a long one. So you write down, if you can, all the tasks that you do on a weekly basis. All right. And Maria gave me the stinkiest I ever, like, what? I know it's a lot. And I had like 4 people. We were a team. We're a small team of 3. So we did it as a team. It took us about 4 hours and we had loads of tasks. But until you can see them, you don't know actually where your time is going. So if you can, go as specific as you can. Okay. You don't have to do it today. You don't have to do it this week. This will be, to me, the best thing you can do. I do it with my clients. Pretty much almost every client I work with, I do it. So, you know, it's a bit of a kerfuffle, but it works. Because once you see everything, first of all, you want to look at your 20%. I'll give you an example. I talk about it in the book. For me, is writing one of them. Teaching, they come natural to me. Creating content even is easy. It goes fast. I can do a lot of it. It's kind of like how you want to work within it as well. And then obviously you look at those tasks and you realize the 20%. Now I'm going to ask a couple of questions before I get to the next step. Is this like the Pomodoro matrix? I don't know. I will be honest, I know the Pomodoro technique itself, but not the matrix. So if there is any similar reference, completely by coincidence, because the only thing I know is the technique itself, which is a technique like time management and how to kind of create breaks and time chunks for people that don't know it. So I don't think if it is. Is the goal to write what you do every week, like recurring tasks, or also what you do? Very good question. Once a month or every 2 weeks. Melanie, I would say if you can write everything is better. And that's a really good question. That's a really good point. So recurring tasks for sure. If you have a lot of tasks or very important tasks that actually are like monthly or every 2 weeks, I will still write those as well. Because that will actually help you a lot, kind of clarifying a few things. It just takes a bit longer. I find that a lot of people like to write down everything they do in general. It really does depend if you want to do it just for yourself or also for a team. So kind of think about that too. Hannah also asked, how to identify the 20%? I'm already worrying about it. I will be honest, it's probably a longer conversation. I want to make sure that I cover everything. Can I be cheeky? Either get both the big leap and reclaim your time off. Bam. Is that all right? No, because I think there are simple things you can do. But I think, obviously, I will be remiss not to mention my book, but also the big leap. I think thinking about it also as a mindset, what that means, will that help you seeing them? So first of all, you need to understand what the zone of genius is. What are the most important things even like your job title, like, you know, or your core responsibilities, that will probably give it away. But I think also like reading The Big Leap has some extra elements that can help you, what you're excited about, what comes easy to you. These kind of things will help you. So if you still feel a bit worried about it, I would say check those as well. But I think your gut will help you a bit. It might direct you. I don't know, Tony, before we jump on, can you think about a couple of things that jump out for you as your 20%, or the kind of the things that for your priorities that come easier to you?
I'm just thinking that until you make the list, it's really hard to see it, because it's a big fog in, like, for me, it's always a big fog in my head. There's stuff that somehow just gets done, and I obviously love a to-do list, but my to-do list is always like focused on the future, obviously, as a to-do list is. So all the stuff that gets done kind of, you know, isn't necessarily noted and acknowledged, and wouldn't be, therefore I wouldn't know where to slot it in. So I think, like, taking the time, like saying that it takes a few hours to do this first step of the method, it's kind of, people who are busy think they don't have the time to do it. But I think taking the time to identify everything, then I think then you'll start to see quite quickly, straight away, you'll know which things you feel happy about and which you don't, you know. And there's some stuff that we just like to do, like you were saying, like you like creating content. It's probably not the best use of your time sometimes, is it, as the head of a business? But it's something you like to do. So it's kind of, I think once you've like got the kind of the practical side of that list down, then it will come a lot easier, is what I would say.
I love that. Yeah, 1000%. Again, also I think it's really important because you give me that perspective of somebody that's coming from a place of having to do it. Like, obviously, for full disclosure, I've done it so many times with so many clients that obviously I can also see it from a result. But the process itself can teach you so much as well. Also, before
I think we've got, oh, sorry, Fab. I was just going to say, I think we've got a few lawyers, at least one lawyer, and some consultants on the call. And so people, like with those kind of jobs, you have to allocate your time, don't you? It's like you charge for. So if we thought about it like that, and Megan's just said that she uses her work calendar to work out what she's actually done. I think just lots of us don't think like that, but it's quite good. It's a good practice to get into, isn't it?
I was literally gonna mention what Megan wrote, because I think it's such a great way to do it. Time blocking is another great way to manage your time. You can do it to like a mega, I'll call it a mega level, where also the free time is color coded, which I love, Megan. I'm a color coding person myself. Or you can do it, you know, a bit more lightly and maybe just have like the core things. But it definitely helps you. Like, for example, I block the time for me to write because I know that's a priority for me. So I think there's an intersection of obviously what you love doing, what also brings you money. Like, you know, what is that, you know, what is the main reason why you're in your business? What the main reason why you're hired to do something? You know, you want to make sure that you're actually doing your job. But it's also an element of what you're passionate about, because if you have to do it every day, you kind of want to make sure that you're doing it. And as you say, what is the best spend of your time? But I would agree, until you can see it all, whether it's as a calendar, which isn't a great other way to do it, or as a list, you don't really know. It's really, really hard to actually figure out what works and what doesn't. Now, obviously, that's the zone of genius. Hello, my friend. Now, this is the next steps. In the workbook, you can see exactly how I would do it. Okay, all right. So the zone of genius tasks is the one that we don't really want to touch, okay? Once we realize what are the core tasks that we really enjoy doing, or the things that we really want to prioritize. And again, in the book, I go through a couple more questions to help you with that.
I'm just going to, do you know Ruby Warrington?
Yeah.
So she founded the Numinous, and she said a great thing, because she spent a lot of time working and not making much money. She does what she loves, but she hadn't been able to monetize it for a long time. And she said recently, she now, before taking on work or before making a decision about work, she asks herself, does it bring me money? Does it bring me good energy? And does it, or does it take me to where I want to be? And if it doesn't answer yes to any of those, then it's a no. So maybe like zone of genius is like those, those things are energy, money, taking me forward. They're quite good. They're three kind of, I quite like those as like tick, tick, tick.
I'm going to give you another one. Oh no, another book, but this is not my book, by the way. Book by the lovely Shan Nix Jones, How to Start a Business, for me,
cool.
On a kitchen table. We also interviewed for our podcast, which is called the Make an Impact Show, if you want to check it out. So Shan actually talks about the 5 elements. I love what we mentioned, but these are the 3 more elements, and she uses them when you're starting a business. You could literally use it also with your tasks. I think is a great one. So again, I'm not going to take credit for something that somebody else wrote. So these are her kind of questions, but it's similar to what Ruby mentioned, is about what's my passion? What does the world need right now? Where is the universe or my gut driving me to? And also, can I make, and also like, how can I monetize it? So if you really want to look into that a bit more, like her book kind of goes through these 5 different steps. So I would say, I love what Ruby mentioned as well. I think it's kind of like similarity. Shan adds a few more elements to it to make it even more tailored, and it really sees what is a hobby, what is a passion, what is part of your work. So again, both of these I would definitely recommend. More stuff. But the thing is, once you figure out, even if you're still struggling maybe to add more stuff or to get clear on the zone of genius, there'll probably be some tasks that that they're not the ones bringing you joy, that the ones that you're feeling like you're dragging, okay? These are the tasks that you want to look at, these like traffic light red tasks, okay? And you want to ask yourself, can I simplify, delegate, or automate this? Again, the way to actually discern this is quite easy. Most of us probably cannot delegate right now, unless you have a team member that is junior, unless you have an assistant. Delegation actually is probably the task that is a bit harder for a lot of people because it involves another person, potentially money, financial, so it's a bit harder. But most of us can definitely simplify things and can also potentially automate things. As I said, delegating is actually probably the step that can be a lot harder for people. So if you're really struggling and you cannot think about a way to automate or delegate, which are usually almost like the best options to get it out of your system, you can definitely simplify. So I would say for each task that you feel is in the red, make sure that you put it into the best column for it. As I said, delegation can be probably the best one when it comes to like actually get rid of the whole thing. Automation can be the next best step. And simplification is what a lot of people do for a lot of things that maybe they enjoy, or maybe they feel they cannot fit anywhere else. Obviously, this is kind of like a good link, like to kind of different things that you can do. And there are different ways that you can delegate, simplify, and automate. So what I thought for today, just be mindful of time because I talk too much. I'm giving you 3 examples, so 1 of each, so you can understand kind of what that looks like. As I said, the book has got there's more things that maybe you will think about as you're writing them down, but I wanted to give an example of what this can look like for you.
This is your 3 steps. This is the 3-step process, isn't it?
Exactly.
Delegate, automate, simplify.
It's almost like the first step is like all that little lovely prep work that feels quite big. But then again, the 3 steps would be like taking it to each, depending on what makes more sense to you as well. So a very simple way to simplify, again, to give you something that literally you could do today, is actually simplify by, again, be more discerning about what you decide to jump on. Is almost what we talked about with Ruby's kind of questions before she takes on a new project. Like having an idea dump, and it can also be a task dump. If you have a little task that you think, oh, maybe I should try to do that, maybe I should experiment with this, is actually a great way for you to evaluate new ideas, new projects, and potentially even new tasks that you want to kind of work on. It actually takes 72 hours before making any critical decision. So if you really go with that, you actually have a lot of time to figure out whether you should do something. So unless it's an urgent task, or unless it's a great idea that you can action in 1 minute or 2, whenever something comes into that beautiful brain of yours, try to have a little bit of a, it can be a note, it can be something in your to-do list. I have a task dump in my to-do list where I have little tasks like, oh, I should definitely update that bio. Oh, I should definitely make the spreadsheet look better. I think about it, I want to do it straight away. It will take me 5 minutes. Guess what? It doesn't ever.
So it never takes 5 minutes.
right? So that's a very simple way to simplify. Obviously, there are other things you can do, but I think this is something that literally virtually everyone can do. If you are a creative person, that can work for ideas. Trust me, it does, because I'm a creative person. If you're more about somebody that has a lot to do and you feel like you're constantly pointing into different directions, have a task dump instead, where you add any tasks that come into your head, and you can even do them when you have allocated time, if you're like Megan and you're blocking your time.
Do you
But
come back to that list kind of once every 2 weeks or something like that, or not? It's just like when you have a bit of spare time, you'll go and have a look at what
the
came out your
task one
brain.
or the idea one?
The task dump, like the brain dump.
The task. So if it's more like tasks, if it's ideas, I usually go through them like kind of every month. I look at the ideas that I have, to be honest, because they tend to be quite big. If it's a task dump, I usually have on Fridays, for example, is my admin day or my no email day.
Yeah.
I mean, not, by the way, not now. When the book is out, it will be back, but it was. So usually there I look and I see if I can flag anything on a Friday. It can be another day, by the way. It doesn't have to be a Friday.
Yeah.
And I flag anything that maybe I want to do. So if you have a day, for example, where you don't have meetings, that could be a great day for you to look at anything in the task dump that you might want to move around. And because they will become projects in themselves. So that's what I would say, kind of keeping them that way.
Sure.
Then I'll give you a free way to delegate. Oh yeah. Look at this. Hack your inbox. Literally the bottomless pit. Boundaries are a big thing. And I think boundaries with emails is as hard as anything. This is a tip from my VA. I'm going to give her credit because bless her. Because she helped me making things even more streamlined for me. You don't need a VA. The VA can help you if you want somebody else to take over some of the conversations, but you can still hack your conversations. So this is what it looks like. Okay, so you can take a screenshot for this one because you might need it. If you don't know how to do it, I think it works also in Outlook, but I'm showing you Gmail because that's what I have. So that's what I know it definitely works. You can create a label, which you can pretty much everywhere. Now, once you created a label on Gmail, you can actually create filters that automatically move some emails into those labels. What you can do, best tip, when you're creating this filter, you can move the email directly to the label and click on archive, skip the inbox. What will happen is the email will not be in your inbox, but it will still be in the label. So it will still be unread in your label, but not in the inbox. It can be something like something to respond. So it can be invoices, it can be newsletters, that's a good one. Or it can even be a manual label if you wanted to, like for example, go back to, and you can do something similar to the task dump. At the end of the day, you can look at the emails you want to respond to within your own time without being popping into your inbox. So you can go through these labels yourself, or again, you can have a VA, for example, that can help you filing your invoices or your payments, just to give you an idea. I like to have a lot of these automatic ones because I have a lot of things that will come from the same, people with the same kind of like subject lines and stuff, and they go into one place. But you can also have some manual ones on top of it, for example, for things that you just see and you want to get out of your purview for a bit. But this is literally the best thing ever. Dora, I don't know what you mean by what label will fit this rule. So I don't know if you want to write it down because I'm not sure if I get the question. Sorry. But I found that this is a really, really powerful thing to do. I don't know if you have any of that, but it literally saves me hours every single week.
So you still see the stuff. You just see it. You're not reacting to it. You proactively go and look into these.
Yeah. So I would say again, maybe once a day. It depends on what they are. Then you can kind of look at what, you can kind of find them. So always look along the left-hand side. You can see how many emails are in that label. So maybe once a day you can have a look and see what you want to look about. Usually, again, once a week, I look at all of them. Most of them I don't need to look on a daily basis. Actually, sorry, Dora, I got you now. I mean, do you use this for specific recurrent emails or specific subject lines? Yeah. So it can be either like a email address or recurrent emails. Usually newsletter ones or things from automated messaging will have that. So that it kind of really helps you with that. You can even do it like with subject names as well. So for example, there's an invoice in it or payment, you can actually direct it. Or if you have a form or stuff like that. So it can really help. You can make it quite sophisticated as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd love to know if anyone else has any. Maria and Megan have both shared some stuff they use. I wonder if anyone else has got any email tips. Yeah, I try and when I'm being good, I try and only look like twice a day, 3 times a day. But it's like kind of like block, block sessions, because otherwise you can just be reacting to it all the time, can't you?
You know what's really interesting, actually, I was talking to a client of mine, and bless her, she said, oh my God, you guys have got such great boundaries. And I was like, so this is to explain to you guys what boundaries are, okay? And I was like, thanks. I didn't feel like, I mean, I'm okay, but I was like, thanks. I was like, you didn't look at your emails on the weekend. And I was like, I will never do that. Because in my brain, that's how I'm not going to respond to your email at 9 p.m. I don't care how important it is. It's not going to be because I set those boundaries, or over the weekend, it's just the way that I'm not going to work. Like, these inbox are out. So it's really fascinating to see that once we understand which expectations we're setting for ourselves, then obviously people might not see them exactly the same. To me, it's natural not to look at my emails on the weekend. For some people, it's not. So don't assume that for other people it will be, because that's really where then you can actually change those communications and kind of like flex things in a different way. Last tip, and then I promise I'm done. This might not be possible for everyone, okay? So I appreciate that you might have to work around it. If you can, try and set up shared availability for your team, your clients, your members. It can be almost like the calendar blocking, but if you can find a way to discuss a way to actually book calls at specific times or be available at always specific times, that can be really powerful. Now, it's easier when you're working with clients and you are working where people book your time. So if you are in that position, please have a booking link. It costs you like £5 a month, or $5 or $10 to have a shared calendar. Please have that. Thanks. Literally send that link, people see when you're available, off you go. If you are more in like a team perspective, or you're working with like, a group of people, then I would say, with that case, it could be worth a while starting a communication and saying, which days would I like not to have meetings, or which times would I prefer to have meetings, and try and initiate some of these conversations if you can. I know it's not always easy, trust me. Even with my team, we had to talk about it openly together, what would be the best time for us to check in. But I asked my team, I did it, so obviously sometimes it's hard, but I asked, what would be best for you guys? How can I make it so that it feels like this meeting actually has a purpose? It's a hard conversation to have, I'm not going to lie. So that's why I want to be fully transparent. But if you're talking to your bosses or your team and people like this and actually start having these conversations, you can actually open up a Pandora box of like, actually, we don't need to talk every day. We don't need to do this as well. Like Melanie started like no Zoom Fridays. That's exactly what I do. It's actually a thing, by the way, Melanie and everybody else. A lady from a company I don't remember the name of started a whole thing because she did no Zoom Fridays, and it went in the news and stuff. But it really brought that idea. I love the Focus Friday, of actually what it can change if you have one day where you're not really having any other commitments. It just needs good communication. Any boundary is a matter of communication. How crazy it might sound. So, if you can have some fixed meetings, that will really, really help. So it's kind of like trying to almost like make it as simple as possible. Sometimes you will have to compromise. I appreciate Linda was like, I tried to ask, but they said no. So it's kind of figuring it out. So I appreciate that will be the case. So it's just finding that compromise to make sure that at least you can save some of the time for yourself. This is all my shenanigans. Obviously, the last question that I have for you, you can write it down and share with us. I would love you to do that. If not, you can just think about it. Think about what you will gain by reclaiming time for yourself. Like by having an evening where you're not going after work out for a walk and you're thinking about work, because that is not a time off. That is you taking work on a walk with you. Would you gain freedom? That definitely was a big one for me. Would you gain peace of mind? Would you gain, family time, connections, better sleep? Yes, Hannah. Time to read. Yes,
time to read.
We got like 17 books already in here today with you. Literally managed to get another book in there, but it's an excellent, it's a really nice book from Sean. You know,
I love
think
this
what you
question though, Fab, because it's like, yeah, it's like, why are we doing it? Why? I mean, all this kind of, if you're not an organized person, like I love a to-do list, but I'm not very good at the kind of Gmail, all that kind of stuff, because I don't know how to do it. So my brain just it will not engage. But it's like, but by remembering why we're doing it, it's like, it's worth the kind of short-term pain of being an organized person to then have more time to read, to have like, even just to have that lightness of not thinking about work all the time, or not thinking about, because the thing is, even if we can't do everything, we're worried about it, it's still taking our energy, isn't it? So
It's
it's
still
kind of just being
working
able
for me.
to, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you're literally thinking about work when you're out on your walk. You're kind of working, you know, because you're still putting all the time into that. Obviously not doing much about it, but
time to do nothing. Yeah, that's a practice work in progress, isn't it? Just while people are adding that to the chat, what they're going to gain, because I love that question. Can I just ask you a bit about boundaries
see,
again, or can we just, because I know Linda's mentioned, I think Linda mentioned talking, like requesting something that didn't happen, but do you have any tips generally on starting the conversation about, because what if you do usually answer your emails at the weekend, or what if your team expects you to be available, you know, as and when, or your boss does, or whatever? Have you got any top tips on that?
well, one thing I would say, I mean, this can be really useful. Okay, let's start with probably the harder answer, because it's not going to help you right now for where you're at. But if you're looking at the future, obviously, just to give us a bit of solace, if you had that conversation and didn't go well, or there was no way to actually find a compromise, that maybe actually tells you that this maybe not be the place that you want to work at. That maybe also it teaches you, again, looking at what it taught you, it actually teaches you what boundaries you want to set when you go into a new workplace. So again, this is the first thing I want to say, is that if anything, it might teach you that maybe you love what you do, maybe you love your work, but you really need to find a company that fits within your values, the values of having, you know, the kind of flexible communication or better understanding of boundaries, because they are there. And I think that's, again, the promise that I can make you, that this book is also trying to change the conversation around work culture in a massive way. Obviously, I'm a little Italian lady from a very small town trying to do a big thing, but I'm trying to really kind of get that awareness from a bigger perspective of being like, it shouldn't be this way, because the book is about boundaries as much as it is about how to be more effective. So again, I appreciate that. And this is why I'm also saying it might teach you what you are looking for, not just in a job, but also in the company you want to work with and for. The other thing I would say is, I think that has worked for some people. Again, as I said, I'm coming from an external perspective, has been literally showing what the company will gain as well. I know it sounds really weird, but showing what will happen if you can have, I don't know, only 4 days a week, you know, like a shorter week. Showcasing like how you can be more effective, how you can be more efficient, you know, almost making a bit of the job for them, giving them a plan almost of what that would look like, and being like, this is kind of what it would look like, you know, these are the days, this is, so it's kind of making it a bit easier for you as well. One positive from all of this madness of the last year, a lot of people are talking about commuting as well, is that it actually has really shown that no company can come to you and say it's impossible for you to do your work from home. Okay, most companies rectify that. I appreciate that. But a lot of companies have realized that you can do your work from home, sometimes decently, sometimes incredibly well. So again, and really has opened up a conversation around actually how much money are they actually spending covering that cost? How much money are you spending? How much time are you spending there? And couldn't you spend that time more efficiently by actually having more time for yourself? So I think,
so it's almost kind of coming to people with a solution as well, as a kind of or a compromise, expecting a compromise, rather than I don't want to work, I don't work Fridays, by the way, boss.
again, I wish in a way that you would say, you know, I would love to have a 4-day week because I'm a mother with like 2 small children, and they're like, yeah, I get it. But right now it doesn't work the way for a lot of companies. They're like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can see you, sadly. So by being able to provide a solution as well as you're coming with your proposal, which sounds really weird, you are just doing a job for them by actually showcasing that what that would look like. It is just a case of like, you know, for example, understanding that it's almost like a case of values for you as well. For example, maybe you love what you do, but you also love your freedom. So you have to ask yourself, well, if your job is requiring you to work weekends or nights, then, you know, what is more important to you? Because that is going to be still a big part of your life. So again, I wish I had a very easy answer about this. But I think because it's also an element of going through the norm, the more we ask and the more we have a communication that is actually proactive, then gives a solution, the more we are able to change the norm. And then the more companies are actually making those differences, which is why it's interesting to see that some people are looking at that as well, and kind of how it's been able to change as well. But I know there's so many people in the chat as well are writing about the struggles, and I appreciate that. And again, I knew that that was a big thing for me. Having those boundaries was key. That's why I work for myself as well. That was a big understanding from my side of things.
Yeah, I think we've got to remember as well, if we don't ask, you never know, right? We sometimes just assume, oh, that's not an option, that's not a possibility. I know quite a few people who are now either job sharing or kind of only working certain days a week. That disappeared.
Sorry, and I was going to say, so I didn't want to say it, but I had to. I forgot that I was in charge, and I was like, this is going to die, and I'm going to.
She's like, we crossed our boundaries. It's after 8 o'clock. Yeah, so we've got to ask, and if the answer is no, then the answer is no, and then we just kind of carry on as we were, right?
Yeah, and again, that might be something that then lets you actually realize whether you need to start looking for a job that can actually get that. And that's probably that tip. Sorry, that maybe when you have another job, that's something that you can negotiate or talk about there and then as part of your contract, as part of the conversation, just to understand the kind of like, this is kind of the best way, and find a way to compromise it together.
Yeah, totally. Guys, if anyone has any general questions, put them in the chat box, because I've got some questions otherwise. What time is it? It's 8:05. We've got you for 5 more minutes or so. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box, guys. Fab, I want to know a little bit about, just quickly, I mean, this is not very long to answer this question, but talking about, you talk about how being more productive can actually make us more creative. Which I think sometimes that to me it sounds like a bit like an oxymoron. Like if I'm productive, I'm just doing stuff. I'm not kind of like using my brain. But you're like, if you're using your time better, then actually you can be. It's better. It can make you more creative and expansive.
I talked about this actually in our live as well, because it's really interesting. I think is the fact that our brain actually, that our circadian rhythms work in a very fascinating way. And one of the things that has been shown is that actually our most creative time is not our most focused time, is the time that comes straight after we have, so, you know, the usual life focus time, energy dip, after the energy dip, a bit of a creative surge, really fascinating. So it's almost that time after we take that rest to recharge because we're a bit low in energy. After that, there's a bit of time of creativity. Creativity comes from space. I have a company called Creative Impact, so I like to talk about creativity a lot. And we cannot have really that space if we not allow ourselves to slow down. Again, countless research about being more creative when you're having a shower and why ideas come that way is also in the book. But it's really interesting because obviously there's a neurological answer to that as well. But if you want to go from the cut and dry, I just find that, you know, ideas come when they can have space to flourish, just like any seed, right? In the bath too, Bernice, I love that. Yeah, I love a bath. You know, if you don't make that space, then it's going to be really hard. As we are joking about, if you're out, you know, walking and you're still working, how can you have time to think about creative things? How can you have the time? Because you're constantly like, you know, kind of constricted. And I also love what Joseph wrote. Creativity for me often requires a change of scenery, a different space. Again, also that will actually help you, because we associate a lot of things, like you associate now your desk with work, you associate this with that. So having something that is almost like a blank canvas can really help. So I love that, Joseph. That's a great point.
Brilliant. Link drop. Thank you, Caro. Yes, we've got the book link. We've got your Instagram, the Creative Impact Instagram, which is awesome if anybody wants to check that out. Oh yeah, links to Fab's event. So this book baby isn't actually here yet officially. It's out on the 11th of May. Baby. And so Fab isn't just having a launch party, he's having a launch festival, of course, because why have a party when you can have a festival? You've totally inspired the next Shelf Help event, obviously. Pre-ordered, yep. So tell us about the festival and if people want to get involved. I think we've got a link there. Yeah, Kara's shared a link, but what's going to happen?
Thank you, Karen. By the way, can we just give a little clap to Karen, because she's been absolutely amazing. I've never seen somebody motivating with such speed and effectiveness. So well done. So yeah, the festival is a 2-day event. It's going to have around 20 talks. Don't panic. They're all recorded and replayed. Obviously, you can watch the replay. They include some fellow authors. They include some members of our community. We're focusing both on redefining success, but also mental health and well-being. So it's going to be a little way to celebrate, because I cannot do obviously an offline event. And it's going to have also a couple of live sessions as well, including 2 live sessions in the evening, so after 6. And it's going to be just about kind of like going through what the book is about and finding a way to kind of bring people together and showcase other voices as well. So it's on the 10th and the 11th. Obviously, the talks go live on those days, but then the replays are available until the 30th. And you even get with the ticket. So you can just join for the launch party on the 11th if you want, and that's free. But we also wanted to have a ticketed one because it allows people to get both a digital and a physical copy of the book. So if you're already pre-ordered, you can always get an extra copy for a friend.
Pay it forward.
See, but exactly, paying it forward. And also £1 for each ticket is going to go to Mind, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So we really wanted to also support that as well, because it's a big part of reclaiming our time is actually making space for ourselves too.
Totally. Yes. It sounds awesome. I'll be there. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Anything else you want to say, Fab, before we say goodbye to you?
Yeah, just stay awesome. And actually, there's a quote that is my favorite quote that I want to say. If you ever feel overwhelmed, just remember, this is not my quote, obviously, but remember that, life is literally 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. So making those changes in your mindset, making those changes is how you want to kind of like take care of each day as you go by. It's going to make a massive difference. You have a lot more control than what you think you do. And when you focus on what you can control, you can really make change. That's it.
Thank you, darling. Thank you for being here. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for the chat.
Me.
Fab, I think you have very, very neatly just moved on to our book of the moment. I know most of you guys know about this. This is what we're going to be reading in the Shelf Help Club for the next 2 months, How to Do the Work. And this is what's going to help us with that 10% and the 90%. So if you're a member already, if you're a bookworm, you should have your book. If not, then let me know separately. If you're not a member, then join us. You've got until Monday, and we're going to be meeting. We meet every 2 weeks to talk about what we'll be learning. So Worm member, yeah. Yes, Denise. Hopefully you'll get your book tomorrow. So thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, Fab. I hope everyone has learned a little bit of something tonight and has some steps to take them forward after this out of lockdown 3 and into a kind of happy medium. What did you say? That work-life harmony, I think you called it, didn't you? Yeah. Yes, darling. So thanks, guys. Thank you, Caro. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This is recorded. We'll share it on the platform if you need to watch it again. And we will see you guys very soon. See you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Fab.